the fact that technology does a few things. What does it do? It connects you, it helps you build community, and it helps you collaborate. Does that sound familiar to you as something that the three things that we're probably pretty damn good at, naturally, without having to think? Right? So when you think of the traits of technology, whether it's your mobile phone or the internet, it's actually a feminine thing. It's a feminine product. So we would naturally be good at being entrepreneurs in technology, right? Does that not make sense? That technology is feminine? It's not funny, I'm serious. So the reality of this is it's not the question of, it's not why. The question now that we're here in the room to answer is why not? And you guys are going to see all sorts of innovative women that have sold companies, that have built companies, and that are starting their companies in a way that you probably didn't think was happening, but it's happening. So that's where we came in to tell you a little bit about Women 2.0. We are a media company, and our focus offers content online, which you've seen on the blog, which is written by female founders, a community, which is through our Founder Friday events now in 17 different cities around the world. We're in the US, Canada, Latin America, and Europe. And through what we're at today, the conferences. And we do this every year. This is our 6th San Francisco conference. In November, we did our conference for the first time in New York. Overall, the mission of our work is to increase the number of female founders of technology startups. But I don't even know if I need to do this anymore because we're all in the room. There's so many of us. It's amazing. This conference started 6 years ago, and we probably had 100 people in the room. And now we have 1,000. And when we polled our community in 2008, and we said, how many of you are founders? And you know, when I asked you that question, a lot of hands went up, right? When I asked that in 2008, 25% of the hands went up. In 2011, 50% of the hands went up. And today, I think it was more like 75%. So it's moving fast. So it's really exciting because even when you look at some of the companies that are probably the hottest, some of the hottest companies that are on the Silicon Valley block, you know these companies. And the slide I showed you earlier was from 2005. Guess what? It looks like this now. So want pink hair. I have green right here, but that's not good enough. Anyway, so we're looking ahead. We've grown. That change is happening super fast. We're growing super fast. And so we're doing more events, more conferences. We're going to be in more cities, and our goal is to have way more impact. So what are we doing? We're actually hiring. And we're actually looking for people to join the team. So I wanted to put that out there to let you know that we're actually looking for managing editors, for writers, for event planners, for strategic leaders. So go ahead, share it. Does that sound exciting to any of you? I know. So, and with that, I'm not sure if Seppi is here at the front. Seppi, are you around? Okay, so with that, talking about growing and all sorts of fun, exciting things that we're doing all over the world, I'd like to bring onto stage my vice president, who has put together this entire conference, Seppi.
Thank you. Hello. Oh my God, it's so bright up here. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Shaherose talked about Women 2.0 and what we are doing today and where we're going from here on, I wanted to talk about what we do around the world. With Founder Friday, which is our networking event, now every first Friday of the month, we are going over the globe, and we are in 17 cities around the world. We are in Austin, Texas, here in the US, New York, San Francisco, Palo Alto. We're in Vancouver, so if you have Canadians here, I don't know if you're here. We are also in Europe, in Spain, in London, and we are hoping to expand that. So if you're here and you're interested in helping us, please let us know. Please email me. My email address is over there. And we'd love to work with you to bring Women 2.0 to your city. We're also in Latin America, where it is an emerging market. And with that, we are currently in Chile, Argentina, Colombia, and also Mexico. and we would love to be in it's Sao Paulo, I believe. Yes, Brazil. So if you're Brazilian and you're here, please let me know. We would love to speak with you. With that, I want to also about who's actually behind all these great cities. We have great volunteers. In each city, you would see 4 team members who are working really hard to bring women entrepreneurship to their city and help out those female founders and technologists. So I would like to give a round of applause and thank you so much for all our volunteers, not just here today, but around the world. Thank you. Women 2.0 would not exist, not only because of our volunteers, but also for our sponsors. And they're listed here. So we'd like to take this opportunity to thank all our sponsors who are enabling us to grow and bring and enable entrepreneurs and founders in technology around the world. So thank you so much for all our sponsors, not just sponsors that help us today, but also every day at all our locations around the world. So an applause for that, please. We are also looking for sponsors. So if you're a company, yes, this is my first. If you're a company who is interested to align yourself or partner with us, please let me know. Contact me after today, and we would love to work with you and potentially have a future. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, Seppi. Hello, Clicker. Frozen. Awesome. So I'm just going to quickly talk about the conference today. The theme of the conference is called The Next Billion. And the traditional understanding of the next billion is really talking about what we say emerging markets, so the BRIC countries in many ways. So we will absolutely be talking about that. To us, we've expanded the definition of the next billion to also include this a couple people have put out articles saying that the next billion of consumers is actually women around the world. So we'll talk a little bit about that, especially in the first presentation that you will see. And then we said, well, it's a little bit more than that. It's about innovation. The next $1 billion of value created through businesses will be through technology and innovation in technology. So keep that in mind today. Keep your minds fresh today. We'll be talking about all sorts of fun things regarding the next billion. I forgot this clicker doesn't work. So in terms of the conference overall, keep in mind that we will go through keynotes. We will go through panels. There will be pitches as well from the startup competition, and we will learn more about that a little bit later. There will also be a mentoring lunch, and we've already assigned tables for those of you who signed up for mentoring lunch. Half of it will be held here. The investor mentoring lunch will be held behind this wall, I think, or that wall, one of those walls. I think actually that's the kitchen, so I think it's over there. And then there's also the innovation hall. Straight through these doors is all sorts of really great companies, sponsors, lots of freebies that you can get access to, so spend your time in the innovation hall. And then, of course, at the end of the evening, we will do networking, and we will announce our winners. So pay attention for that, because we'll be giving away the prizes to the startup competition winners, pitch startup competition winners. But overall, it's going to be a really fast day. So I don't know, pay attention. And so the other thing I really want to mention that's really important to us is making this day, and I would say every day going forward, about giving and getting. So in general, the ethos of Women 2.0 is very community-driven. Our focus is to give and get, meaning if we're giving you the opportunity, to pitch on our stage or blog on our network, we're hoping you're going to get something out of it, right? And so when you're here at this conference, keep the give-get model in mind. If you know that you have some knowledge that you want to share, even if you're just starting out, share it. Give your card to someone. Meet up with them for coffee, right? Because that'll come back to you, I promise. That's the entrepreneurial way of giving back. If you give, you will receive. So keep that as part of the day-to-day. Give a card, get a card, give advice, take advice. It'll work like magic. And actually, women are super awesome at that in general, right? So give and get. So I think I'd like to quickly thank our sponsors again. These are the sponsors for today's conference. Our major sponsors are actually Bing and Google for Entrepreneurs. And everybody else listed on here has also given us a great amount of support, and we'll mention them again. But I wanted to give a big shout out to Bing and Google for supporting us. Now, some really interesting, important items. If you're connecting with us today, you should use the hashtag W2Conf on Twitter. You should follow us on Twitter at Women2. If you're on Instagram, we were a little late to the game, so we missed our handle. So it's at Women2Com. And really fun, if you want the conference app, so you can see the interactive bios of the speakers, you can see the interactive bios of the companies that are pitching, you can see the schedule on your phone, Android and iPhone, download it. That's the link, myYap.us/W2Conf13, I think that's the number. Does that sound good? I'm not sure why I keep bending there. I have the screen in front of me. All right, so with that, I'm going to take a minute to introduce you to our morning MC, and I'm super excited to have Kara join us. I'm sure everyone is very familiar with Kara Swisher. She is epic, and we're so happy to share the stage with her. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kara just to keep it exciting and formal, but essentially Kara did start out covering digital news for digital issues for the Wall Street Journal's San Francisco bureau all the way back in 1997. Her column Boomtown originally appeared on the front page of the Marketplace section and online at wallstreetjournal.com. Previously, Kara Swisher was covered breaking news about the web's major players and internet policy issues, and she also wrote features on technology for this paper. She has also written a weekly column for the Personal Journal on home gadget issues called Home Economics. With the also epic Malt Wassberg, his name is Walt. I swear it's Walt. I just made it up. Malt. I'm hungry. Walt Mossberg. Did I say it wrong again? Jeez, Walt. All right, she currently produces and co-hosts everything that you guys know all about, which is AllThingsDigital, also known as AllThingsD. It's a major high-tech conference, and she's had people like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs on stage, pretty exciting, and people that we probably couldn't get on stage. And the gathering is considered as one of the leading conferences focused on emerging tech and media. Of course, after our conference, right? So with that, I am going to bring on stage Kara to take over the morning.
Yeah, I think this is, I just have a few papers here. Thank you. I'm going to put this down for a second. My name is Kara Swisher. It is actually very bright up here. Thank you for coming. It's a real treat for me to be on stage here, and I was easily accepted doing the MC duties just for this morning because I don't often get on stage where most of the people in the audience are women. I tend to spend my life, I call it my life as a sausage fest. And you can try to think about what that means. And I also, big and little. And I, not that I would know, but I also have two young boys. I have two sons, which sort of rounds out my entire life. And on the way here, my oldest son, he's 10, he asked what I was doing. I was taking him to band at like the crack of dawn this morning. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm emceeing a conference that is mostly devoted to women entrepreneurs and how they, don't get as much of a break as male entrepreneurs. We always try to stress this with them all the time. My partner and I, Megan Smith, who is actually in Vietnam right now with my other son. And we always try to stress that women, we take them to all kinds of places. We take them up to Seneca Falls and places like that to give them an idea. They persist in being the most male people on the earth. But it's so funny. We live in San Francisco, which is, we live in the Castro of San Francisco, which is literally the gayest part of the gayest city, probably the gayest state of the gayest country in the world. And they should be a little more feminine, but they are not in any way whatsoever. And continue to love the guns, love the video games, love calling girls babes, and stuff like that. So there's no way to get it out of them for some reason. Not that I don't try that hard, but in any case, he asked, why would you need to do that? And I said, well, most of the companies I cover are all run by men. All the entrepreneurs I deal with are mostly men for the most part. pretty much ideal in almost an all-male world that I cover, and then I have to come home to you. And he said, well, that's not fair. And I said, no, of course it's not fair. It's just the way it is. It's the way things are in this world. And he said, well, what are you going to do to change it? And I said, because you're kind of in charge of a lot of things. And I said, well, that's, it's building awareness among people and how you change things, how you shift things. And so we talked a lot about it on the way there, which was kind of interesting. And he, it's the kind of thing I think about all the time when I'm covering stuff for the web, because indeed, since I covered it, I actually was at the Washington Post before I was at the Wall Street Journal. I've been covering the web since it actually went commercial. When it was a government, I wrote one of the stories of when it went from a government institution to a commercial institution. So I've been covering it for a very long time. And one of the things that I've spent a lot of time with is trying to put focus on why there aren't more women entrepreneurs, why there aren't more women in charge. Recently, when Meg Whitman was made CEO of HP, I called up Sheryl Sandberg to tell her, and who's the COO of Facebook, and who's about to come out with a very interesting book in about a month called Lean In, about women leadership and various things. And I said, well, now you're the second most powerful woman in technology, and there's just two of you. And she said, she goes, well, I look forward to the day when I'd like to be number 10. And so, I said, well, good luck with that. Now you're number 2. And I guess she's moved down since Marissa Mayer got into Yahoo. But in any case, it's something we think about a lot. One of the stories I wrote many years ago, unfortunately, I'm one of the few who call attention to it, and everybody should, not just women, but men should. I wrote a story several years ago called The Men and No Women of Facebook. This is before Sheryl got there. And what I did is I put the pictures up, just like was done here earlier today. I just put here are the people running Facebook, which is primarily, I think, a majority of users are women. It's pretty split, but it's around 60% at the time were women users. And I called it the Men and No Women of Facebook, and it was pretty much what it always was white guy, white guy, white guy, Indian guy, Chinese guy, white guy, pretty much. No diversity otherwise, besides that. And then years later, I did the same thing when Web 2.0 was coming. I thought a lot of these websites, Pinterest, Groupon, Zynga, are all very heavily used by women users, women consumers. I wouldn't say, earlier you said the web was more feminine. I'd say it's more female, more than that. It's more used by women. And so I decided again, I looked at the boards of Web 2.0 companies, and again, they were stacked full of men, pretty much. And I pointed it out again. I said, here's all the major companies. And the problem with the Web 2.0 guys is I call them hothouse flowers because they're very sensitive to the issue, and they really are. So, they're like, oh, we feel so bad, and yet it's still the same. And so I tell this story a lot because it was really interesting to me. Andrew Mason, who runs Groupon, who is literally a very delicate flower as far as I'm concerned, he gets hurt when I write anything negative about his constantly plummeting stock. And he called me up and he said, Kara, I just feel terrible. And I was like, I'm so sorry you feel terrible about something you're causing. But he said, what should I do? And I was like, literally, I felt like I was like, I was like Oprah or something. And I said, well, get more women on your board. That's pretty much the situation I was calling your attention to. And he goes, how should I do that? And it was just like one of these conversations. It was like it was a strange conversation because he really didn't know how. He was aware of the situation, but he actually did not know how to get them. And he said, well, maybe you could suggest some women to me. And I said, no, I'm not going to suggest some women to you. You can find them. They're out there. They're really available. And there's a bunch of amazingly smart women moving upwards in the technology world. And that's what's the good thing, is there's a lot of women at the middle part of the spectrum, at Google, at Yahoo, at various companies. I think the issue that we have to have, and I think we'll talk about today because it's a startup competition too, is that at the very beginning of where startups are, and it goes way back, and we can discuss STEM research and research around women and girls and math and technology, where they fall off the train. But it really does start at the startup level. More startups are run by men, more startups are funded by men, and they tend to fund for reasons, and I don't think it's malevolent reasons at all in most cases, that it starts at the startup level. And many years ago, someone said, I think this is going to change when there's not a Mark Zuckerberg, but there's a Marcia Zuckerberg, which I was like, ooh, that's not an attractive person, I think. But I do take issue with the fact that you said they're all really handsome, because they really aren't, and I can, I'm sorry. It's not the case. Try to be nice, but it's simply not true. When I thought about that, there has to be a Marcia Zuckerberg. You really do have to think about it. There have to be sort of women iconic founders that create big companies. And that does start up on the startup level, which is what we're trying to do here today, to talk about that and how to do that. And so one of the things that I think we should think about is that is creating successful companies and selling them and making billions doing that, presumably, and moving on up the curve, because it's not going to change until that does actually happen, that women take control of the innovation. They're so responsible for consuming, and they're such an important part of the ecosystem. So without further ado, we're going to get to all this stuff and go through a whole bunch of stuff this morning. Just as was said earlier, the conference hashtag is hashtag W2Conf. That's a really catchy one. The handle is @Women2, and Instagram, which is @Women2Com. And I'm supposed to say the location of the restrooms where there will be a line. What a shock. It's down the hall, left and down the hall, and the coffee break room is in the Italian room. So let's try to really listen today. I know everybody's always on their BlackBerries and stuff like that. I'm addicted myself. But really try to pay attention to some of these stories. We're going to do some interviews and things like that, because even the smallest tips are super important to figuring out which way you're going. And as was said earlier, really try to make connections here. It's very important. You never know where you're going to make a connection, and it's very, very important to do so. So without further ado, we're going to bring on our first speaker, who's going to talk about innovation, Fran Meyer, who's on the founding team of Match.com, was the founder and chair of the board of Trustee, which is a privacy trust market solutions provider, and she's going to talk about all kinds of things. I'm not going to... Some of the same things. And so give her a warm welcome. Here she goes.
Thank you.